wait
So
for
this
the
is
song.
She's going to talk to us about international sales. So
well, I first want to start with I'm a KW agent too. So it's an honor to be here with all of you. Diane, of course, we go back to, I don't know how many years, like 7, 8 years. So it's a long story, but I'm glad to be here. First, I want to ask everyone from the group if you speak another language. Does anyone here speak another language? What do you speak?
Sign language in English and French.
Oh, and
Swedish.
oh wow, great, great, great. So we know the good morning, buenos dias, ni hao, bonjour, obrigada. So those are international ways of just at least saying hi and just start getting to get a relationship with an international client. So what I do is I'm an agent. I'm also with HAR International Advisory Board. I've been with the board for 7 years. I'm currently the co-chair and incoming chair for next year. I do presentations all over for international real estate. The one that I do for agents is a little bit more compact on what you really need to know when dealing with international clients. Last week we were HAR. We had a joint efforts with the city of Houston and the Panama Canal, just a huge success, and it's all about international. So first I wanted to kind of give you an idea of I think a lot of the times one of the things that we get confused on what is an international transaction and who are truly international and how do I know that I'm actually dealing with an international transaction as an agent. So a lot of the times you think, well, if they're from another country, that's it, that's an international transaction, but you don't realize that an international transaction is also someone that might not speak your language, someone that speaks a different language. A lot of times we look at different properties that are listed, not only if you're looking at properties that are here, that are owned by international, what we call foreign nationals. That's an international transaction. So as an agent, you need to make sure that you kind of keep an eye on what you're trying to do and who you're talking to, especially if you work with relocation clients and clients that are coming in. And I'm telling you, in our area, Montgomery County, you're going to find a lot more international clients coming in, especially in farm and ranch. We have a lot of Chinese money coming in. The other thing that we need to make sure is that we totally understand what is a foreign national, especially when you're talking about NAR. And this is all because you guys, you know that you have an E&O, you have liability, and you want to know who's who, right? So when you see someone that you're not too familiar with, just ask, do you have a visa? Are you from a different country? And it's okay to ask because you need to cover yourself and you need to cover them for the purpose of the transaction. And why is so important? Why are we just going around now and making sure that agents all over really truly understand what is an international transaction? Mainly because Houston is right now the #1 state for diversity. Houston have grown tremendously. We're looking at some of the forecasts and some of the statistics, and this is from NAR. I mean, we are the #3 or the 3rd state, Texas, with the most international clients coming in. And I tell you what, last year in October, HAR asked us at the board, said, look, we have this huge delegation from China. These people are really important. First time in Texas, they do a lot of investments. They're very familiar with New York. They're familiar with San Francisco. Can you guys put a presentation for this delegation? So we did. We didn't even know who we were talking to. As a matter of fact, my presentation was all about the Woodlands. I talked to Howard Hughes corporate offices in Dallas. They allowed me to actually even do the presentation that they do for their commercial clients. So they got in, these people came with their own TV, I mean, they had reporters with them. They had, I mean, we were like, who are they? Because it was like, wow. And so we didn't even really know who we were talking to. You know, it was very kind of like, hush hush, we're not gonna tell anybody. So we did our presentation and all that. They ended up coming to Texas, they ended up coming to Houston, they ended up spending millions of dollars here to find out that in that little group of people, we have one of the most wealthiest investors in China. He owns banks. I mean, it was like amazing to understand who we were actually presenting. So that's one thing that you have to also know, you know, where are we at, where are we going, and why it's so important. And then the other thing that it's sometimes as agents we forget to understand when talking about international clients is what is the real difference? Like if you never work with an international client, for example, what is the banking difference? What is the culture difference? When you talk about banking system, there's a huge difference. A lot of the times, most international clients, foreign nationals, for example, they're used to buying cash. They don't even know what a mortgage means. They don't even know what in the world you're talking about. I'm working with 2 clients right now that literally I had to call the lender yesterday and say, look, I have explained this in so many different ways about the mortgage that I don't know any other way to explain it anymore. So can you help me out? Why? Because you want to educate the client. You want to let them know. A lot of times they come in and they want to spend all their cash, right? And so they have the cash to spend, which is great. And as an agent, sometimes we're like, okay, good, it's a cash transaction, so we don't have to worry about anything, it'll go fast. But think about something else. What if that cash for one property could become 3 or 4 properties, because now you're educating your client on how they can actually apply for a foreign national loan and a mortgage loan. You following me? Mm-hmm. So you want to know different banking system. You want to also know one that we always say is very interesting. How you know how here in the States, if you're a notary, you just get your license. I mean, anyone can be a notary, right?
Right.
In most countries, when you talk about a notary, not only are you a lawyer, you're above a lawyer.
Wow.
Okay? So you have to educate your clients in, like, when you say, oh, don't worry about it, the notary is going to come in. And so they're thinking that they're almost talking to a judge. Because there's this idea in most countries, when you notarize something, it's a big deal. It's above a lawyer, the education you need. The other thing, tax implications, and I'll go into this because there was a couple of FIRPTA. Have you guys heard about FIRPTA? Does anybody know about? Some people are looking like, I have no clue what you're talking about. Super important, there were changes done to FIRPTA in February. And a lot of the times we get phone calls, I get phone calls from even our agents in our office at closing that they didn't realize what the title company's talking about. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But all of this is very important because you want to know the other thing. We had a presentation with Panama and they're all talking about, you know, instead of square feet, they talk about square meters, and you're like, well, what are you talking about? You need to understand what is it that they're looking for. Most countries, they don't use the same metric system as we do. And last in this slide, something super important if you're going to be working with international clients, you want to make sure that you have a group of vendors from your CPA to your title company, to the loan officer, to everyone that you're working with, that is truly a wealth of knowledge within a foreign national transaction that they know. Not a lot of lenders do foreign national loans. So like we work in our board, my board has Stewart Title. Stewart Title, we have the VP of Stewart Title International. Why? Because Stewart Title is probably one of the best title companies globally for international transactions. They have offices everywhere. The other thing is when you work with international clients, you want to have a title company that totally understands the transaction. If the money is coming from a different financial institution internationally. I had a client, for example, that is a Venezuelan citizen who works in Oman. Oman, it's in the Middle East, and a lot of, because of the oil and gas, you're going to get a lot of investors from that region here, because a lot of the times they're going to be working with oil and gas companies from the States. So these guys wanted to invest here, but their money was in Venezuela. And you're like, great, this is awesome. Not so fast, because a lot of countries, and Venezuela is one, you can't transfer money directly to the U.S. It's not allowed for their citizens.
Oh, wow.
So you don't want to go to the closing table and understand, oh no. First thing you want to know is like, where's your money coming from if you're talking to an international client? Even though this guy was in Oman, which is a friendly country to us, and he could have transferred the money from Oman, his money was in Venezuela. So this is a different, you know. So those are the little things that you have to know before you go to closing.
What did you have to do, Carrie? Did you have to send it to online?
Well, in that transaction, we ended up sending it through South America, through London here. So, yeah.
Sounds like money laundering.
It almost sounds like it, yes. But it's not, because it's very real. I mean, it is. It's just because of the political, and again, you have to understand why. And that's a great question, money laundering, because a lot of these foreign nationals now, and guys, again, for the purpose of your E&O, there's new laws that they were passed last year because of so much money coming into our country now that are good, I mean, big money we're talking. So if you're looking at a property that is $500,000 and up, and you're working with a foreign national, it used to be where you were not responsible as an agent. You have no liability because it's not your, you know, due diligence, I guess, to know where the money's coming from. That's no longer the case. As an agent, you're working with a foreign national, and they tell you, I want to buy $1 million property, which most foreign nationals, that's what they like to do. Now, you're responsible. You're a party to the transaction. You're responsible to really understand where is that money coming from. And a lot of time, the international clients, they love to do transactions under different names and under their corporations or who knows what. And funny enough, you also get a lot of clients, especially from Latin America, because what they've gone through, that they introduce themselves with not their real name. And you think that Senor Rodriguez is Senor Rodriguez, and at the end of the day, when you finally get into real contract, that Senor Rodriguez become, you know, someone else, and you're like, what? So the other thing that you could do sometimes when you work with international clients, and I'm actually doing this with a lot of the clients if I don't know who they are, before you start working with them, ask for a copy of their visa, a copy of their passport, a copy of some kind of legal documentation, and you just tell them, say, look, I just need this for my files. This is going nowhere. I just need to have this, you know, in my file in the event, you know, for safety reasons. FERTA. So this is something that is really interesting because a lot of us that are not used to the international market forget. one of those things that are interesting, again, let's say that you get a phone call for a listing appointment, and you're so excited, it's Lake Conroe, it's a beautiful property, over $1 million, you're like, yes, I'm gonna get this listed. Lake Conroe has a lot of international clients, foreign nationals, owners, okay? So you get there, of course you're not familiar, they might be speaking perfect English, or they might have a little bit of an accent like me, you know, and you're like, I'm not sure where you're from. And you may think it's kind of like rude to ask, but it's not. Guess what happens? You get the listing, you put that listing on the market, you get a buyer that is purchasing the listing, and it just happened actually not too long ago with an agent that literally was in tears on the phone trying to understand what was going on. The listing is owned by a foreign national, even if Canadian, a Canadian, right? So you take your foreign national owner to the closing table, and at the closing table, the title company must take, if it's 300,000 and above, they have to withhold 15% from the sales price. It used to be 10%, but as of February of this year, it's 15%. So guess how you feel when you get to the closing table and the title company said, I'm so sorry, Mr. Seller, but your proceeds from this property are this number. And he's looking at you like, what? Where's the, you know, I'm missing 15%. Well, you never explained to them that you're a foreign national because you didn't even ask. You see where I'm going? You see? And then, if you're representing a buyer, guess what? Actually, who is responsible for that 15% is the buyer. So if the title company doesn't get it, or let's say that the seller forgets, or someone forgets to withhold that money, your buyer is responsible for the 15% of the sale price. And guess not only that, that money has to be in an IRS account within 20 days of closing. So if you're talking a $2 million property, you're going to have a lot of mean people going after you. And you can get sued, your E&O is going to kick in. I mean, this is the little things that sometimes we forget as buyers, as agents. We get so excited about, you know, I have this huge listing, or, you know, I have this buyer. Ask the right questions, because without those, you're taking a lot of liability.
And if they have a tax ID number, then that's the way to have it, right? Or Social Security number.
Definition is, if they're foreign nationals, they're foreign nationals. So it all depends. I mean, and this is the other thing. You want to know what kind of visa they have. The tax ID, is that a corporation tax ID? Is it a personal tax ID? I mean, I wouldn't even, as an agent, again, we're not legal advisors, and we're also not immigration agents. So all you want to know is, and I say this in a funny way, but I mean, there's so much that can go wrong into something like this and a transaction like that. And I mean, at the end of the day, the last thing you want, not only just to have clients that are mad at you, but the lawsuit, it's pretty bad. New York is having a ton of issues with that.
I just went through this last month, and I had to get an interpreter at the closing. I already warned them ahead of time, because I said, do you have a visa? Do you have an immigration card? Do you have a green card? Do you have anything besides your name and your passport? And they said, no, we are not a citizen. So I had an interpreter at the table to explain this in detail. Plus, I had the title company had to go and get more data for that 15%. And there isn't any interpretation in Spanish, it's all in English. So you need somebody to explain it to them prior to sitting at the table for 4 hours, going line by line. But anyway, it was very much a difficult situation. It could be really bad if you didn't do your job before. The problem is, how do you explain to them to get their 15% back from the IRS if they pay taxes?
Great
An
question.
accounting nightmare.
Remember what I told you at the beginning? Like I do, I mean, most of my clients are international clients. I have a group of, vendors, and I call them vendors, but you know, it's almost like my team at this point. I am not a CPA.
Right.
I'm not a lawyer. All I have is, I'm an engineer by trade, but I've never used that. So all I have is a license to, you know, represent them in the real estate transaction. Guys, let's get in the habit of when you have something like that, you have someone that is the expert, like this, the international CPA that know exactly what they're doing, because a lot of the times what happens is we get into this like, oh my gosh, this is not going to close in my commission, and you know, I need to get it to, and then you start trying to explain things to them, and then at the end of the day, that might not be the case because you really do not know what kind of tax ID they have under, what, the transaction could become very complicated if they have a LLC here, or, you know, they could be on a different types of visas. So again, my thing is, like I have my international CPA, he's wonderful, he's downtown, I do a lot of more downtown. It all depends what you're working on, but just have an international lawyer that is a real estate lawyer that knows their stuff. Immigration, and I'm gonna touch on this, EB-5, and I don't know how many of you have heard of EB-5. Does anyone here know what EB-5? Whoa, do I have a crowd?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want to?
I got a question. A year ago, I sold a house for around $275 to a guy from Huntsville. So he's not a U.S. citizen. And he told me about a month or two ago he may want to sell in a year. So I think you said $300,000. So here is a foreign national that owns the property. And I'll possibly have to list this house and sell it in a year, 18 months. And it should sell for over $300,000. So that's going to be one of those scenarios.
That will be, and I just cover
Full
yourselves,
contract.
cover yourselves, because you want to make sure that you explain. Because she brought something very, very good to the other thing that we see a lot, and things are going to be changing because we're getting more and more involved in the international. We see agents that, like, it would be hard for me to represent an Japanese-speaking client. And in all honesty, I don't even think that I would even attempt to do that. Why? Couple of years ago, an agent in the Remax office, and I'm not going to say where, represented an international client who does not speak, supposedly do not speak English. They understood what she was saying, but they took her to court, and there was a lawsuit against her, against the broker and everything. Why? Because they said, well, we understand English, but we do not understand the technical English, meaning we do not understand the terms that she was telling us. I mean, we thought we understood, but what we understood was really not what we thought. So if you really want to represent someone and you have no clue on the language, just get another agent, get someone to help you, or even pay someone to be a translator for you, because it's just not worth your time and liability. And most of the time, $5,000 is the minimum of your E&O that you have to put out there if you get sued. So EB-5, I can't believe no one knows about EB-5. Okay, so this is something that a lot of agents get in big trouble when you get to EB-5. EB-5 is a government issue immigration program. It was issued in the 1990s, 1994 or so. So EB-5 is, and there's many countries that have kind of the similar program as ours, and what we did is, at the time, we said, look, we're going to issue a program that we can get capital investors here, and then from those capital investors, we're going to be able to give you kind of like a green card. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but we're gonna make it simple, right? So a lot of people know the EB-5 program by immigration by investment. Does that ring a bell now? Immigration by investment. So a lot of people go in, and please listen to this real quick, because I had an agent that I did the presentation, and when I told the client, if you buy a house that is $500,000, you can apply for EB-5. No. EB-5 program is an immigration program that is under a project. You could invest in real estate. However, that project has to be approved by the federal government for the purpose of the real estate investment. And the main requirement that the EB-5 program has is 10 new full-time jobs. There were a couple of companies in the Woodlands that were builders. East Shore, anyways, a couple of companies that they told clients, especially in the Woodlands, I'm sure, I don't know if you guys do anything in the Woodlands, but also, sometimes the Lake Conroe. What they do is they think that because they're gonna start a new company and a new, building, they're getting 10 new jobs. Construction is not new job definition by the federal government. Let's make sure on that. That's the first thing. In the case of the Woodlands, the 3 companies went down, and everyone that invested there for the purpose of the EB-5 was fraud and never got their money back. And the minimum investment, well, it's $500,000, and I guess I'm probably going a little bit too. Hold on. It's $500,000 or $1 million. There's nothing in between, and it has to be for an approved project under a regional center. Okay, now you're like, what? Okay, so these are like, for example, this is Houston EB-5. I don't know if you guys know Emilio Guzman and some of the guys downtown. This is inside the loop. These are some of the EB-5 programs. What that means is that these 3 buildings here, they've been financed, in sometimes 50%, 20% financed by EB-5 money. However, they have their own regional center, they're approved. The thing is, $500,000 or $1 million, nothing in between. Those are the 2 options you have. And you have to be financially able to prove, because this is through an immigration lawyer. So if you have, let's say you have a client, and the client say, look, I'm going to purchase a house from you, and the transaction goes perfect, and then after that they say, you start talking, and they say, we are from Panama or Argentina, I don't know, Mexico. And they started telling you, our goal is for our kids to go to college here. We would love to see how we can, get our green card and all that. And you know that they're wealthy and that they can probably start their own company and all that. So a lot of times they come in and they think that by starting their own company, like a restaurant or whatever it may be, that they're going to be able to apply for the immigration by investment. No. It's just a little bit more complicated than that. The project has to be approved. The United States have 10,000 visas that they issue every year. Last year, by I think the beginning of the 2nd quarter, they were gone. 10,000. The majority of them were purchased, or were I shouldn't say purchased, but they were investment through China. We have one of the regional centers that I work with. They're in Illinois. They have $52 billion, $52 billion in an investment in a hotel in LA. The majority of it, EB-5 capital. Now, why is it important to an agent to know this? Because let's say that you have that client that say, I want to buy in one of those buildings, or I want to buy, and then you find out that, oh wow, that is an EB5 project, right? As an agent, for the purpose of the real estate transaction, it takes 18 to 24 months to convert the immigration by investment to get a green card. I don't want to confuse a lot of people. But let's say that you have that client that invested in one of those condominiums, which there are a ton of people coming in and investing in this for the purpose of the immigration, right? You brought them into the table. Legally, you cannot be paid a commission on that because it's not a true real estate transaction. It is for the purpose of immigration. So just remember that. Actually, you can go to jail if you get a commission. However, the cool part comes in. If you keep track of your client, 18 months, 24 months, now it's converted. Now it's no longer immigration. Now it becomes a real estate transaction. Let's say that they actually get into the real estate transaction. That's when you can actually get the commission. Might be a lot of information in those questions.
The example you just gave of the Illinois Center where they had 52 billion, and then you said most of it was for ED money, but the cap on ED money is $1 million?
Well, and that's the cool part.
Okay.
That's per mil. I mean, it's 500 or a mil, but however, let's say that you have a mil, okay, for the immigration. And the cool part of this, I have to say, it's also that not only, let's say you invest $1 million. The program goes to, for you, your spouse, and anyone, all your dependents under 21 years of age. So all of you get into the program and you can all get green cards. However, wealthy, well-educated investors, if they see a project that they really think it's going to be good, and mainly because EB5 projects are, they have to pass all of the requirements through a regional center, through the federal government, the investments are really good. At the end of the day, you know you have a very secure project. They ended up actually investing even more money. There is people out there, and I don't want to get too into it because there's other ways to invest, but that's just the main, if you hear investment by immigration and EB5. So, and I don't know how much you guys knew about the Houston market and how much we're growing, especially all of this area here with the hospitals coming in and new industries. We're the number 9 for growth in the States. But look, something really interesting here. The Woodlands is the number 1 and Sugar Land number 2. And again, we're talking about foreign international money. And I would not doubt that that's going to be coming even further north, with all the new development coming up here. So that's why you have to really keep track of what's happening. Obviously, because our cost of living is still very low, our taxes are very low, we're looking at, we were named one of the young cities when you go down into the Houston area. So there's a lot of things that are happening here. Part of our board of directors for the international, we do a lot of honorary members. We started that 2 years ago. And so one of our honorary members for the international board, she's from the city of Houston. Nikkei is in charge of governmental affairs and protocols for every single embassy and consulate that is in Houston. So she keeps us informed of anything and everything that is happening. And for the purpose of embassies and consulates, we're the number 3rd largest city. We have over 92, I think we're coming up to like 94, 95, if it's not more, registered embassies. obviously you guys know about the international, you know, the airport and all of that. I'm trying to go fast because I know you guys, you're dividing. So, HAR, who we are, the International Board, and anyone that would like to participate in our board, we are welcoming everyone that wants to really understand more about international, that really think that, hey, I can do this and I can learn. So one of the things that we're doing right now, we have had this for a couple of years, Area 82. Area 82, are you familiar with the MLS Area 82? No. So, for example, let's say that you have, this is good.
We think they need to have you come back and give us.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, I know it's a lot of information in just very little time, but it's things that you want to know. I have a client that I'm meeting with that I have properties that I'm actually listed in different countries. I'm meeting with someone that has, by the way, if anyone has someone that wants to buy a property in Playa del Carmen, Cancun area, I'm about to list one property there, right? So what we do is, Area 82, guys, is for international properties. The definition of an international property is a property that is not in the U.S. Even though, for example, Puerto Rico, that's where I'm from. Well, I'm Texas Rican at this point, but Puerto Rico is part of the U.S., right? We still consider 82 because it's not within, you know, it's a territory. So any international properties, let's say that you get a client that says, look, I've worked with you long enough, I have a property in Panama or New Mexico or wherever that I need you to list. Do you know of anybody? You can list that as long as you have exclusive right to sell. You cannot list, and there's a lot of agents out there that HAR is going to start tracking those, and I think as brokers, we need to start looking into some of these issues because our MLS rules from NAR dictates that the only properties that you can list on MLS are the ones that you're under an exclusive right to sell. You cannot be under a co-marketing agreement. I know that there is a lot of brokers doing the co-marketing agreement. Once HAR gets into it and they start asking the MLS part of it, a lot of people are going to get in trouble. So we want to make sure that you know how to list international properties, but that you're doing it correctly, that you're following the rules and that you're not going to get busted later, or that you're not causing your broker a headache because, hello, you can't list there. The other thing that we know is 82, and really for all MLS under Tempo or HAR, it's only for residential properties. If you have a commercial property, you're not allowed to put it on or list it on any MLS. We see that a lot international. As a Houston Association of Realtors in the International Advisory Board, one of the initiatives that we have, for example, I've been working with all our legal advisors from TAR to HAR, and we want to bring this to NAR. International, in my books, is something that if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss the boat. Why? Because the world is coming smaller, smaller, and smaller, and you're going to get people buying on the internet, you're going to get people buying, you know, international properties, or even calling you on your listings, because they're out there, and anyone can get hold of it, right? So we're working with our lawyers to try to see if we can just come up with a legal document that can cover all these international transactions in a much smaller scale of all these documents we have, you know, because a lot of the times these international clients, they come in and like, they're blown off. They have no clue of what we're talking about. They don't do business like that. In most countries, they don't have a license to do real estate. And in most countries, they work with a lawyer. Real estate agent is kind of a marketing person. And at the end of the day, once you go to the actual legal paperwork on the transaction, you go through a lawyer. So a lot of times they come in and they're lost. It's just about education. This is some of the partners and some of the organizations, like I'm involved with the Asia area. Great organization if you want to get involved in something of an international, of course the Hispanic, the Houston Black Real Estate Association gets a lot of international clients. Again, if you want to learn more about international real estate, take International 101. It's coming up. It's a very simple class, no big deal. We'll go into more detail into this. Come and visit us. In order to be part of our board, we have a requirement. It used to be anyone could actually join, but now we're realizing we have requirements. You have to have 2 years of international, and you have to prove that you have international transactions, and a commitment to finish your certified international property specialist in 2 years. These are some of the, some of the statistics that you saw today. This is where a lot of them came from. That's it. I'm sorry, I tried to cover it.
We're running low on time, so if you have some specific questions for Nellie, she's going to stay for just a few minutes, and we'll, give me 2 more minutes and we'll be done. Jenna?
I wasn't sure about the 15%. Do they get that back eventually, or when? How long?
So what they do is, and again, I'm not a CPA, and this is why you need to have a CPA that can really, advise them. The IRS will look at their financial situation, and it's on a case-by-case basis.
Really?
Yeah, it all depends. It's capital gain, guys. So it all depends on what the capital gain and where you're at and which country, it all depends. So that's why I don't even attempt to, like, here's my CPA.
All right, thank you.
Okay, quickly, this Thursday, November 3rd, Glenda Hampton's doing a class on customer service. This is a 6-hour class. One of the things that we're being told that really we need to be really awesome at in a shifting market is customer service. So this is a great class. She's teaching it. There's no cost to the class, so November 3rd. And you'll need to sign up on our online calendar for that. We are doing next Monday. We have a KW Shares Christmas Bazaar. We have several vendors that are coming in with jewelry and makeup and all kinds of different people that are coming in. So you can do some Christmas shopping next Monday at the office, and that would be from 2 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So if you have somebody who you think might want to participate, have them contact Krista, and otherwise, come with willing to spend some money. And that's pretty much any wants or needs. Anybody want to talk about any wants or needs that they have? Properties?
I have a house on tour today over in Tees Cottage, on Tees Cottage in Teeswood. Our gate code should be on your sheet there. I'm serving some lunch, so you'll be hungry.
Awesome, okay.
My sister's
At
up.
the
They have
gate,
a little virtual tours, Earl.
pound 1810.
1810?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they just changed it.
Yeah.
Pound 1810 on the gate code.
Okay, and we'll get which one's first, Earl? On the virtual tour. Okay, you want to come up, and while you're coming up, we'll do a drawing. 934? Oh, it's 934.
Well, nobody's making my.
Judy again?
No, Judy.
You're the ring. Just draw again. You're just a lucky to see She won the gift card.
Follow her. I'm running
Been all over everywhere. Won't be able to get it. Go all over.
I have a quick question for Nellie before you leave. Nellie, do you have like a concierge list for those of us that aren't going to like dive off into this? People we can refer out like yourself or somebody. I don't want to learn Spanish and French and Japanese and all that stuff. Yeah, I mean, is there a concierge list where you know, people that speak those languages, that do multiple
Good idea.
transactions, that we can just like hand them off and say,
Give me
you
a call,
know,
that's the best, in all honesty, that's the best thing to do, because we have, our board, we have, I don't know, at least 20-something languages spoken there. We have representatives from almost every country you can think of.
Right.
So, you know, it's hard for me to tell you, this is because you never know. And it all depends also, you know, the part, you know, if you're talking downtown, the loop, outside.
Yeah, most of it's up here,
Yeah.
but, you know, Korean.
I'd be
is
more
like,
than happy to
hello.
help you.
Yeah.
Great.
On your SAO, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. So.
Yeah, just give us a call, or give me a call, you have, Diane has my number, and all that, and I'm really everywhere, all the information. And then at that point, I can really, direct you to what makes sense. Okay.